How does Ben Shelton create so much power on his serve? This video is all about how he does it, what you can learn from it, and one thing that I'm thinking you might not want to copy. So let's get going. As usual, when I'm analyzing any serves, I'm using Dr. Mark Kovacs' 8-stage model because that makes it really easy to follow along with the motion and see exactly what the ideal position should be. And it starts with the grip. So continental grip is a must. And then because Ben Shelton is a lefty, his right side is actually pointing towards the net post. So right shoulder, right hip here, squared up to the net. The next thing is the ball toss. And there's a couple of things that anybody can do that Ben Shelton here demonstrates to perfection. So number one is he's got a straight arm. So as he's bringing the arm up, here the arm is straight. Same on the side, of course. Right here, so straight arm, and he releases the ball around eye level, top of the head. Eye level, top of the head. So on the left side, I don't have enough frames really, but we're seeing that the ball is starting to leave the hand around eye level. And here on the right, you probably see that a little bit better. That's where the ball leaves the hand about eye level, top of the head. So that's really key for a good, consistent toss. If we let this roll further on, you see how the arm extends up all the way. So completely extended here. And we're going back to one more thing here. So the toss and the release is stage 2, and then we're getting into stage 3. And here's where I want to point something out. Now we do see his right hip over the baseline. However, that is a function of him loading his back hip, back leg down and back. So he's got a really, really heavy coil. I'm almost tending to say this might be a little excessive. That is still the old cue. You got to push your right hip out. For him, it's the right, or the left for us right-handers. That is not what you want to do. This is not the end goal. This is a function of him loading like a crazy person, basically. So, and I think if we want to look at the logo here of the shorts, you see how he's loading down and back. So he's not just getting down into his knees, as we say in German, he's also coiling. So you see how this logo here moves down and back to get into the loading position. The loading position here coincides lowest drop of the knees, lowest part of the elbow, and then you're getting into the cocking position. But before I'm talking about that, let's talk about the ball toss. So if I were to just drop a line down here, you see that the ball toss is inside the court. And the reason why that happens is his tossing arm goes up towards the net post. Just by virtue of that, the ball will be inside the court. So you don't have to toss it anywhere around here. And now in the 4th stage, in the cocking position, the energy that he created and stored with that really, really heavy coil is unleashed to go up and out. And you see the chest, chin, inside of the elbow, and also the wrist are all pointing up, whereas the tip of the racket is actually pointing down. So this is a really great cocking position. The offhand is starting to tuck in, and then Ben is accelerating up to contact, leading with the edge of the racket. See that here, leading with the edge of the racket and getting up to contact point. Now we're in contact point. Contact is in front. There's a slight bend here, and that's perfectly fine. Now, of course, when you have a monster serve like that, it's really easy to play patterns. However, I'm thinking that anyone can learn to play patterns with their serves. And the most important patterns that you can use as a server are in the Fuzzy Yellow Balls singles playbook. You got the regular old serve +1, but also the ankle breaker. So check out the singles playbook from Fuzzy Yellow Balls. I'm going to drop the link down below in the description. And now let's continue with Ben Shelton Serve. You also notice that in the loading position, and this is something that everybody can work on by loading down and back, you have the shoulder over shoulder and hip over hip. And as long as possible, you want to stay side on. And you see that here, Ben is pretty much side on in the cocking position. So his right side is facing towards his opponent, still side on, big time as he's about to make contact. Now the deceleration phase, and we're seeing the side with which he hit the ball is pointing to the outside, and that happens because there's a huge internal shoulder rotation and a forearm pronation. He's landing well inside the court, and for him, because he's a lefty, the right arm and the left leg shoot back to balance him. And again, that is a function of the really heavy load here. You gotta balance that. And I always want to add on to all of this that you need to recover. And he does that right here. So catching his balance, split step, and the return comes right at him, but he's still balanced right here. And recovering ideally behind the baseline, which he's doing here. So again, if you want a huge source of power, it's not how fast you can swing. It's not this here. It's not pushing the left hip or right hip for a left-hander inside the court. It is the loading down and back. That is what gets him that absolute monster power. And if you let that run in real time, it's really about how well you can load and how fast then you're getting out of that load and up and out into that ball. So let me just let this run in real time. So it's incredibly fast, it's incredibly powerful. I also want to point out one more thing, which I think is very interesting. So if we look at the starting position, the checkpoints pretty much remain the exact same. The foot is turned actually a little bit more than to the net post. It's not quite parallel, but if we look at that in a second, you will see that the foot here is pivoting, and that facilitates that heavy coil. However, from the Australian Open, which is this footage here, to newer footage, you see here that Ben has an incredibly big stride taken back, and he's actually not completely set here. So he's starting here, and you see how he's putting his foot back, and now he comes forward into the loading position in a pinpoint fashion. And I always maintain, even the pros, that you want to have only the absolute fundamentals that you need. So this step here, him taking this step, is something that you don't need. And he's eliminated that here. You see him with his body weight on his front foot, and it's now rocking back, but there is no more additional steps. So even the pros work on really simplifying movements, because again, the more extra stuff you have, and he doesn't really need it to get into this super, super heavy coil. The more things you have that could be moving, the more things you can mess up. So that is definitely one of the things that anybody can take away. You want to try to eliminate things that you don't need. And you clearly see that here. He doesn't need that extra step rocking back to come into an incredible, potentially even almost excessive loading position. So keep it simple. And if you do want to have humongous power on your serve, you want to work on that loading down and back.